Hey guys, it's Adam from Lucipixel and welcome back. Now if you followed my channel for any length of time, then you're well aware of the fact that video games have played a constant role in my life, from early childhood all the way into working professionally in video games, and I've worn many hats in the video game industry. And it's been a great source of inspiration, of entertainment, but it's also been a great source of distraction and procrastination, which I'm sure any of you out there on planet Earth can definitely relate to. But of course, video games only serve as a single form of distraction. Social media is awesome for that. But even when we don't have social media, we also need to clean our homes. We also need to cut the grass outside. We also need to wash our cars. We also need to rearrange our library, etc. There are a million different ways that we can procrastinate. And what I've discovered over the years, and one of the things I want to share with you today, is conventional thinking doesn't solve procrastination. And what I mean by conventional thinking is the typical things we tend to do to try to pull ourselves away from our distractions in order to do something that we feel is more productive, more conducive to a successful professional career as an artist. So to give you a little bit of context on this, I'm going to, instead of talking about drawing and art and video games, I want to talk about smoking. I was a smoker for almost 20 years, something I've spoken about in the past on my channel. And I can say with complete confidence that well before I ever even put that first cigarette in my mouth and lit it up, I knew that smoking was bad for me. I mean, every TV show for kids and every person I ever crossed on the street, or every person who stood next to me on the bus stop, or a million times, I had people looking at me, turning to me, informing me that, cigarettes are bad for you. Those things will kill you. You're ruining your lungs. You're blah, 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 blah. And despite all of that, and despite all of those disgusting pictures that the Surgeon General decided to stick on the front of cigarette packs, none of that did a single thing to deter me away from a single cigarette. I would thank them very kindly for their kind advice and then tell them to F off and leave me alone so I can enjoy the rest of my cigarette. It never made a bit of difference to me. But then one day, something happened. One day I started to feel sick. I felt this kind of toxic, almost nauseous feeling in my body. It was very hard to describe. I felt like I had poison in me. And I didn't know what was causing it. And it lasted days, it lasted weeks, it lasted months, it ended up lasting years. Imagine feeling like you have poison running through your body, making you feel that, that horrible, gross feeling you get when you feel nauseous. Imagine feeling that in your fingers and your toes and your stomach and your throat and your head. Imagine feeling that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for years. Well, that was my reality for years. And I could not for the life of me figure out what was causing it. I changed my diet. I tried the elimination diet. I tried exercising more, exercising less. I tried doing things with my sleep. I tried everything in my power to get this feeling to go away. And sometimes I would have periods of maybe 24, 48 hours where it would kind of disappear. And I literally felt like somebody had lifted the weight of the world off of my shoulders. I felt like I could sing and dance. I felt so good. And then it would come back. And I dreaded that feeling. It wasn't until years later that I figured out what it was. But in the meantime, while I was sitting there suffering and trying to solve this problem and trying to live and manage this problem, in the back of my head, there was a little voice saying, Adam, you're a smoker. You need to acknowledge the fact that you're smoking is probably doing this to you. It would have caught up with you eventually, and now it's time to pay the piper. Now it's time to pay your dues, and you're sick because of this. Although I never felt more or less sick when I smoked, but I started to make this realization. I started to make this connection between smoking and feeling sick. So when I finally decided, when I committed to that reality, or at least the reality in my head, and I decided to quit smoking. I quit quickly, I quit immediately, and I never looked back. And now, 5-6 years later, I can't even fathom the idea of putting another cigarette in my mouth. I made this connection, this emotional connection between smoking and feeling sick. To this day, I continue to feel that way. If I even think about putting a cigarette in my mouth, all I feel is sick. That's a pretty powerful thing. But here's the thing. Only maybe a couple of months after quitting smoking, I was still feeling sick. The feeling did not go away. In my head, I thought, well, maybe it's because I've caused long-term damage to myself. I don't know. But I still had not solved the problem. I didn't start smoking again, but I still didn't solve the problem because I had this feeling that if I start smoking, I'm only going to make it worse, and I didn't want to make it worse. So on a whim, being at the hospital for something completely different, I asked the doctor, because I was getting blood tests, and I asked the doctor, can you test my thyroid at the same time? Because I knew that I had thyroid in my family. I just thought, on a whim, might as well give it a shot. I never thought it could be my thyroid because I never had weight issues. I never had energy issues. I exercised 4 or 5 days a week. It was, and I wasn't taking any medication or anything like that. So I never thought that it could be that. But I decided to give it a chance anyways. And she said, sure. She decided to write me down for a thyroid test as well. And the next day, at around 6 a.m. in the morning, I get a call from my doctor saying, Adam, I'm putting you on medication immediately. And I went, sorry? She goes, yeah, we got your test results in for your thyroid. And your TSH, meaning your thyroid stimulating hormone, is over 100. And I went, what does that mean? She said, it means that you're lucky to be alive right now. And I went, what? I kind of felt, I went pale. I went, what the fuck? What do you mean by that? Right? She goes, you're coming to the doctor, you're coming right now. I'm giving you some medication. I want you to start taking medication immediately. But here's the thing. I discovered that my sick feeling was thyroid related. It had nothing to do with cigarettes in the first place. However, I still feel sick when I think about cigarettes. If I close my eyes and I think about going to the store and buying a pack of cigarettes and lighting one up and taking a haul of a cigarette, I can make myself feel physically nauseous doing that. That's very powerful, isn't it? As such, I know for that very reason, I'm never going to put another cigarette in my mouth. There's just nothing but bad feelings that I have associated to it. And that's the first huge lesson about procrastination. It's not about facts. It's about feelings. We don't procrastinate because we fear hard work. Because in reality, video games aren't easy. They're not easy at all, are they? I mean, if you think of some of the games that I've played, like Dark Souls and Cuphead and even World of Warcraft back in the day when you'd have to get raids of 40 people together, this was a huge, frustrating, grueling, long endeavor to get this stuff off the road. And you do this for weeks and months just to get one little piece of gear or one little achievement or beat one boss that's so frustrating that you wanted to throw your remote control across the room because it was driving you mad, but you persevered through this. No, it has nothing to do with being lazy. You can clean your entire house. You can scrub every corner with a toothbrush in your house before you pick up a pencil. It has nothing to do with laziness. It has everything to do with feelings. So what you need to do as an artist, if you're sitting there and you're procrastinating, if you're playing video games and you can't seem to pull yourself away from it, instead of sitting there and thinking to yourself, you're a lazy piece of shit, instead what you should be doing is asking yourself the question, what does the thought of drawing make me feel right now? Do I have positive feelings or negative feelings associated with drawing? Think about it. Drawing is not an easy job. Drawing is an emotionally and even physically, to a certain degree, taxing thing to do. And the thing is, when you draw, what pulls you into drawing, what gets you into that, quote, flow of drawing, is when you've kind of pushed yourself over a certain scale. You've pushed yourself past a certain point where the effort gets easier and you can see the visual reward of what you're creating. That difficulty factor ebbs away and you start to feel overtaken by this feeling of accomplishment, and you get propelled forward. It's kind of like, I can see my achievement. I can see that this artwork is going in the right direction. And you get this boost of confidence that pushes you through to the end of the piece. When watching one of Vadavidia's videos, I am a gamer after all, during one of his Bloodborne videos, he quotes J.P. Lovecraft in saying, there's no greater emotion, there's no more powerful emotion to humans than fear. And there's no greater fear to humans than fear of the unknown. And that rings so true to the feeling that we can feel when we have uncertainty, the fear of not knowing if our piece is going to succeed or fail. And more often than not, the way to navigate around that is through training, through technique, to learning the fundamentals, to understanding that the process of creating a work of art, a successful work of art, is not this spiritual journey thing, so much as a technical process of steps that'll get you to a certain point. You need fundamentals to get past a certain block. And once you have all those pieces of the puzzle technically in place, then you can let go of technique and start to express yourself. That ties into another quote that I love saying all the time, which is, learn the technique of drawing and painting so well that eventually at one point you can let go of technique and start creating the real thing, art. You need to get to a certain point first before you can start expressing yourself. You need to know how to plan your colors. You need to know how to plan your values, how to plan your composition, how to put all of the pieces of the puzzle together first. And then, once you've overcome that obstacle, technically, then you can start having fun and getting creative with it and expressing yourself. But when you don't know that, when you're walking into a work of art, what you're doing is you're walking in blind. And when you're walking in blind, that fills you with fear and uncertainty. And that's where video games come in. Because even though a video game is extremely challenging, one thing that video games offer you psychologically that art doesn't, at least at the same pace that video games do, is they always let you see what the reward is. You always have that carrot at the end of the stick dangling right in front of your face. So you know constantly what you're going to get for that effort. And what you don't necessarily have as an artist is you don't see that piece of artwork until it's created. You don't have that physical carrot on the end of the stick. So how the hell do you get that carrot in front of you? Here's the trick. You need distance from your distraction. It takes time. You need to grind through it for a couple of days to get the wheels turning. And when you get the wheels turning, you're going to at one point cross a threshold with your drawing. This only has to happen once, by the way. You cross the threshold with your drawing, where all of a sudden you look at what you're in the process of creating, and the vision is there. That goal becomes there. You can see that you're creating something that's going to turn into something great. But you're sitting there and you're looking at your goal and you say, holy shit, this is really turning into something awesome. And that goal puts you into autopilot, doesn't it? That's where that quote, flow, that groove comes from. It's seeing your goal, feeling that success. Finish that painting. And when you're done with that painting, immediately jump on the next one. You want to ride that wave of success. Do not reward yourself with a video game. Because what you're going to do is you're going to let the video game to start taking over your dreams again. You're going to have that video game start to pull you back in. And here's what happens. If you do this for around 2 or 3 drawings, if you produce 2 or 3 pieces of artwork and you ride that wave of growth, you're also creating distance from your distraction. You're creating distance from the Instagram feed. You're creating distance, or the Instagram feed will actually end up being your friend because that's where you can show off your cool prize that everybody else can like. You get that distance from the game, and then when you log back in, you can't feel the prize. And I find that every time I would take a break from World of Warcraft and then I would log back in, I'd log back in and I'd look around, I'd be in Orgrimmar, I'd go to the auction house, I'd kind of check out the gear I have on my character and then I'd go, meh, and I would log back off again. I don't feel the prize. And it just felt boring. It felt distant to me. And there was nothing pulling me back in. This is the momentum you want to create in your career. For me, one of the things that keeps me constantly productive, one of the things that keeps me producing art, one of the things that keeps me growing and building my studio is building my studio, where I get so lost in learning about camera equipment and learning about audio and learning about video and learning about editing techniques and learn about like building up my set and getting all the lighting. And then I learned about camera sliders and got these nice camera moves and start to get into doing book reviews. And I'll dig into some of my old books or buying new ones. And this project built and built and built on itself. And as I'm building on my channel and as I'm building on my art, I'm growing artistically. I'm presenting my art to you, which you're watching me do right now. And I'm reaping the rewards. I've got visual evidence of all of my effort around me. And to be completely honest with you, particularly since I moved to my new place and I started building this new studio and I got really into like just being able to really invest myself into my space to grow my school and to grow my channel and to grow my skills, I really have very little incentive to play video games. More so now than any time in my entire life, I really don't feel the desire to play that much. I started playing a little bit of Resident Evil 2 again. It's fine. I log in for about half an hour or so, and then I get bored of it very quickly and I go back to my thing. I spend most of my time researching camera equipment, audio equipment, researching art, learning different techniques, you name it. So you can see that telling yourself that you're lazy, telling yourself that you're a bum, that you're just a video game geek and you're never going to amount to anything, on that respect, is not serving you anything whatsoever, because you're not associating a feeling with that. What you're not doing, what you're trying to do is you're trying to pull yourself away from an immediately gratifying feeling with something that holds no value to you emotionally. So you have to approach this in an emotional way. But here's another reason why you need to tackle your feelings with regards to this. And you need to have some compassion for yourself. You need to stop blaming yourself. It's because you're only adding to the emotional burden of producing artwork when you feel guilty. Ask any smoker out there why they don't quit, and that's because they feel terrible for what they're doing. It's called smoker's guilt. You know you're doing something wrong. You know you're hurting yourself. And as such, you get down on yourself. You hate on yourself and say, it fucking serves me right. I've been smoking my whole life. Yeah, now I can't breathe. Good job, asshole. People have been telling you your entire life that you're going to do this to yourself, and you just go, yeah, and you brush them off, and here you are in the hospital. Good job. Pats self on back. And you end up being very hateful on yourself. Video games are just as hateful on themselves all the time. You give yourself shit. You call yourself a lazy prick. Sometimes because you feel that way about yourself, and sometimes because the people around you keep telling you that that's who you are. They keep telling you you're a lazy bum and you're not doing anything with your life. You have to let that go. Take that weight off of your shoulders. You are not a bum whatsoever. You're a very ambitious person. You're just investing that energy and that ambition to something that is providing you with a more immediate reward. And what you need to do is distance yourself from that and find that feeling, that rewarding feeling somewhere else through your artwork. It takes a couple of weeks to break that habit, but once you've broken it, I guarantee you, video games aren't really going to be that alluring to you because you'll be too far away from it. You won't be feeling it anymore. And understand that if the idea of starting a new piece of art is a scary and uncertain thing, it might be because you just don't know technically how to overcome that hurdle. And I guarantee you there are many people online, many schools, many teachers, many professionals that can help you get over that hump. And 9 chances out of 10, when you get over that hump, everything else becomes a whole lot easier. All right? So with that said, I love you all with all my heart, and happy painting. Take care.